The X-Men can never have it easy. Now, there is a virus going around murdering them. Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read as dramatically back to you all alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. This is the beginning of the extraordinary X-Men run with all new, all different Marvel. Aurora Monroe sits at the old desk of Professor Xavier at the Jean Grey Institute, pondering the recent events of the mutant worlds. A world left in chaos after Scott Summers started a mutant revolution before he recently died. She is unsure of what to do next, but she is the one in charge, so she has to set the new course. A world without Professor Xavier's guidance. Her silence is short-lived as Iceman storms into her room with urgent news about Magic, who is currently on a mission in New Delhi, India. In India, Magic is fighting off a maddened crowd. There is a new mutant which they fear. The military is there to kill the new mutant, and Magic is the only person there protecting this young girl, whose name is Sapna. People are scared of her because she might spread the Mpox, which is a recent development in the world from the Terrigenesis that has been spread throughout the globe. When mutants touch the Terrigenesis cloud, they become ill and eventually die. But when a potential inhuman touches the cloud, they gain abilities. Magic fends off a rain of bullets and she conjures up a teleportation spell to take Sapna and her parents with her to the only safe place for mutants, X-Haven. Location currently unknown. With a flash, they are gone from India and back home. Sapna needs medical attention because the Terrigenesis hit her hard, and Storm and Iceman learn what they can from Magic about how the world is becoming more and more afraid of mutants day by day. Storm makes her decision. They must form a strong group of X-Men to fight a war for survival. Meanwhile, at Empire State University, the young Jean Grey is on her own at school, trying to live a normal life as a normal college student. As she leaves her class, Storm flies down from the rainy skies. "The X-Men need you, Jean," Storm tells her. "But I don't need the X-Men," she replies back. Iceman is there too, and he tries to sway her opinion, but Storm has a better idea. She tells Jean to read her mind, to see what she's seen. In Storm's mind, Jean sees the world of mutants is in turmoil. The Mpox from the Terrigenesis is sterilizing the mutants in addition to making them sick. This is all there will ever be, Storm warns her. Meanwhile, over in Russia, Piotr, also known as Colossus, is working on his old family farm. It is just him, alone, trying to find solitude in the world, and as he settles into his home with a bottle of vodka after a hard day's work, his sister, Ileana, also known as Magic, arrives. She tells him of the problems of the world with the Mpox, and he understands, but he doesn't want to fight anymore. She goads him, calling him a coward, but he ignores it. And then she uses her sword to strike a blow at him, and he turns himself into the organic steel monster Colossus, stopping the blow. Ileana smiles. She knows he's still in there, her big brother, the Great Warrior, and it's time to find his best friend, Nightcrawler. Back with Jean, she's still refusing to go back with the X-Men. Even with all of that peril, how can she go back to the X-Men knowing that becoming an X-Man is a personal death sentence for Jean Grey? This version of Jean is a younger version taken out of the past, but she has seen all of the events of what happens to the future Jean Greys. They all die. Storm understands, but before they leave, they give her a mini Cerebro. It is an item created by Forge that will allow Jean to find X-Haven if she changes her mind. Jean asks where is X-Haven, and Storm tells her she'll have to see for herself. Before Storm leaves, Jean gives her some information. After Scott died, she scanned the world telepathically for other mutants, and she discovered a mutant who was out there, but shouldn't be. Out on the icy tundra, a man walks alone in the wilderness. After a couple of sniffs, he pops his claws, and suddenly a sentinel looms over him. He begins to charge and assault at the sentinel, and the robot cries out, "Please, don't hurt me!" Just then, Storm and Iceman see him. It's Logan, but a much older looking Logan. This is a Logan from a future timeline, also known as Old Man Logan. After the events of Secret Wars, he was misplaced out of his timeline and placed into the current timeline. They are astonished to see him because in this timeline, Logan is supposed to be dead, currently inside of a solid tomb of adamantium. Logan is offended to see a sentinel, but Aurora explains that is actually Cerebra, who is housed inside of an old sentinel. Logan still isn't pleased by this. He explains to them that he is from the future where all of the X-Men are dead and he doesn't know how he got here. He just woke up and here he was. Aurora wants to help him. They need him since Scott is dead, but Logan tells them no. He's not Wolverine anymore. Back in Brooklyn, Jean is on a date with a fellow student named Chris. She tells him that it's a relief to get away from school for a little bit, and Chris gets her to open up a little bit about her past. How the other boys that she'd been in love with have never really worked out. Suddenly, Chris kisses her and she blushes. Was this the normal life that she was looking for? As the two of them leave the bar, Jean is distracted. Off in a nearby alley, there is a mutant who is being ganged up on by street thugs. She can feel the hate in the air as they beat up the mutant, so Jean barges in telling them to stop, and they tell her that this is none none of her business. Chris tells her not to worry, it's just another mutie, and she sighs at that response as she suddenly bursts out with a telekinetic rage, knocking out the assailants and putting them to the ground. They soon run off, and Jean's would-be boyfriend panics because he just kissed a mutant, and he runs away. She then tells the mutant that there is a safe haven for him, and he stands up and tells her that he is not a mutant. He's actually an inhuman, and he runs away. Alone in the alley, Jean pulls out the mini Cerebro, thinking that perhaps she is needed after all. Magic and Colossus teleport to Amsterdam, where they think Nightcrawler is at, and when they get there, they discover that he is gone, but they do find his blue devil tail dismembered at the site that they thought he was gonna be at. Something happened to Nightcrawler. Forge back at X-Haven gives them the coordinates in Manhattan where Cerebra is tracking Nightcrawler, and he also finds other mutants there. So Magic and Colossus venture down into the sewer where they're reading all of these mutants to be, and that's when they run into the mutants that Forge tracked. They're demonic-looking mutants, and Magic and Colossus do battle with them, quickly knocking them all out. And that's when a familiar voice comes out of the shadows, delighted to see their Rasputins. "I do love the possibilities of playing with your lovely bloodline. It is Mr. Sinister!" And catching Magic off guard, he slams her head into the wall, knocking her out. Over at X-Haven, Aurora and Iceman have returned, and that's when suddenly all hell breaks loose. The defenses that Ileana has set up have just gone down. Moving the school into limbo with demons was a really bad idea, Iceman says as these winged demons descend upon him. Over in Canada, Logan is making work on a whiskey bottle in a dive bar, and he begins to talk to a voice in his head that he believes to be Jean Grey. Of course, it can't be her. She died, and it just has to be her ghost tormenting him. As he walks back to his trailer, he sees Jean Grey alive and so young. And they go into his trailer, the two of them, Logan from the future and Jean Grey from the past. They talk about the state of things, the death of Scott Summers, the Terrigen Mist, but it doesn't matter. Logan doesn't want to be a part of the X-Men anymore. Jean doesn't believe that he's lost everything, so she reads his mind and sees the future of James Howlett. She sees the future that he came from, one ruled by supervillains, and how Logan killed all of the X-Men and how he lost his wife and child. He did lose everything, and now he's back in a world that torments him. He still believes that he is destined to kill the X-Men, just like Jean is destined to die. This is their destiny, isn't it? But no. And so, of course, no. Logan refuses to go back to that world. But Jean tells him that that is all nonsense. They have control. They can prevent these destinies from happening. They should not be cowards. They should not live in fear as to what is to come. Not while the X-Men need Marvel Girl and Wolverine. Their only real destiny is to be X-Men. So Wolverine, with Marvel Girl at his side, decides that it's time to get back into the fight for mutant survival. But he is not wearing any damned costume again. Back in Limbo, the X-Men are fighting to stave off the demons that are flying above them. They must protect the students and the mutant refugees at all costs. The defenses that Ileana put up went down because something happened to her, and Forge's backup systems were not ready yet. They desperately fight, and Iceman releases snowmen that he had in cold storage to fight off the demons. The new mutant Sapna releases her mutant powers and actually gains control of one of the demons to help fight off even more demons as Storm unleashes all of her power to hold them back. While Forge is working his tail off to get the X-Haven shields back online, he gets a message from Jean through the mini Cerebro. She says that she's ready to help and she's bringing a friend. So he uses the Cerebro Sentinel to transport both Marvel Girl and Wolverine into Limbo because they need them right now. With the cavalry here, maybe they can buy Forge the time that he needs to save X-Haven. Back in Manhattan, Mr. Sinister and his new marauders have captured Colossus, Magic, and Nightcrawler. In his insane laboratory, Sinister has a helpless mutant and a containment unit. He exposes them to the heavy doses of Terrigen Mist that he's collected. His plan is to use the mist to turn the mutants into some kind of hybrid Homo superior sapien, a mutant that is so strong that they can resist the Terrigen Mist. In order to do this though, he has injected this poor purple elephant looking mutant with inhuman DNA, but his experiment fails and his subject melts away. Perhaps Ileana is made of sterner stuff. Colossus looks on helpless as Sinister begins his mad work. The X-Men continue to fight in Limbo. With the X-Men united, they are able to fend off the demons so that Forge can finally get his emergency shields back up online. Fighting off the last of the demons, X-Haven is safe, but now the more pressing matter is what happened to Magic and Colossus. They are clearly in trouble. Forge can trace their signals to Manhattan, and Wolverine will do the rest, tracking them down once they are there. Cerebra gets to Manhattan, and Wolverine gets to work. In the lab below Manhattan, Sinister is preparing to experiment on Ileana with the power-dampening serum that he's injected into Colossus. Colossus can't power up, and just as Sinister is getting ready to do more vile experiments, a familiar snikt sounds, and 3 claws pierce the chest of Mr. Sinister. With that, the Marauders begin to assault the X-Men, and the fight goes quickly, but the X-Men are too much for the Marauders, especially with Jean Grey there to mentally defeat her opponents. Wolverine frees Colossus from his bindings, and he quickly recovers his sister Magic, who is currently unconscious. Nightcrawler is still stuck in the containment unit, unable to escape, and Wolverine thinks that there is something wrong with him, but before they can figure it out, Sinister rises from his wounds. "Don't you see what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to make you better. I'm trying to make you perfect." He then unleashes one of his specimens, one that has not died. Cyclops! Jean tries to telepathically communicate with Cyclops, but there is nothing there. So Wolverine goes in for the kill just as the Abomination blasts him into the streets of Manhattan. The remains of Scott have been fused with Inhuman DNA, turning him into a monster. The Inhuman side of him begins to take over, turning him into a bizarre humanoid with eye beams. And Iceman tries to contain him, but he's too strong. Colossus, who's still powered down, takes Sinister down with an attack to his back, and he goes in to protect his unconscious sister. The rest of the X-Men take the battle to the streets to stop this monster Cyclops. And on the streets, the innocent are in danger, so Iceman plays defense to keep them safe. Storm takes on Cyclops directly while Wolverine tries to recover from the optic strike. Down below, Mr. Sinister recovers from Colossus' strike, but now he can actually turn into Colossus, and he goes toe-to-toe with Mr. Sinister. The fight continues, but Sinister is too powerful even for Colossus, so Colossus continues his fight, but Mr. Sinister puts him into a headlock. Suddenly, Magic Sword decapitates Mr. Sinister's head from his body. Up above, Wolverine manages to fight through the pain, and he gets right into the Cyclops monster, stabbing him through the chest, which somehow destabilizes the creature. He's going to explode, so Aurora tells Marvel Girl to contain the explosion. Using her telekinesis, she lifts the creature off of the ground and it explodes, contained in her protective shield. The day is won by the X-Men, but the onlookers have seen more mutant chaos, and they are just afraid. This isn't helping the mutant public image. The press is there, and Storm turns to the cameras to address them. Storm tells people that it is the mutants that are dying, not the humans. She understands their fear after what Scott Summers did, but the X-Men are not fighting a war against the humans. They fight for humans and Inhumans alike. But if you try to hurt us, we will retaliate. Even though you may fear us, even though you may hate us, we will not give up on you. To me, my X-Men! With that, Illyana transports the X-Men, including Nightcrawler, back to X-Haven. Back at X-Haven, Forge informs Storm that Maria Hill has already contacted them to inform them that they have S.H.I.E.L.D.'s full support, and that S.H.I.E.L.D. will clean up and contain the Marauders and Mr. Sinister. S.H.I.E.L.D. will also help them locate any more mutants that need to get to X-Haven. There are more mutants out there, and the work has just begun. Jean asks if Logan will be moving in, and he's a little hesitant. The last time that he was in a mutant sanctuary, he kind of killed all the X-Men. But Jean asks, was I there? With her there, everything will be different. She'll watch his back, and he'll protect her from all of the teenage boys that are looking at her kind of funny. Anything is better than you and Slim. Oh, didn't anyone tell you? There's a new teenage Scott too. Wonderful, Old Man Logan retorts as they walk back into X-Haven. This is the new beginning for the X-Men with the all-new, all-different Marvel. I'm personally really loving the story, and I can't wait to see what they're gonna do with it. I know it's getting a lot of interesting backlash because it's another change-up of the status quo for the X-Men, but out of all of the change-ups to the status quo, I think this one's my favorite one. Don't forget, we do manga over at Comicstorian every Monday and Friday. The link to that's down below, and we give you video game comic books every Friday on our gaming channel. Link to that is also down below. I'm also on Twitter at Comicstorian and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you guys next time right here.